All right, guys, here is another episode of the Knudson Garden Update. We're back here at our cucumber making machine, our hydroponics tower, and we got some more cucumbers that are ready to pick, so let's take a look at them. All right, so our cucumber vine is starting to suffer a little damage. It's getting a little cold. Cucumbers like the heat, but it's still got some cucumbers left. So we got a nice fat cucumber here. We'll just put this up here on the top. We've got some more cucumbers that are ripening in here. We got this little guy. I think I might let him ripen a little bit more. But we got this boy here. He's a pretty good looking cucumber. And we got another one here. And if I go over here in the back, here's another cucumber. A beauty, as Steve Irwin would say. Let's see what else. Ooh, we got another one back in here. Where else do we have cucumbers in here? Looks like we got a couple of smaller ones over here. We might let them grow a little bit. But oh, I see another one. Looking down here, there's that cucumber. He's ready. I'll pick him. Good looking cucumber. Any more over here? Yeah, there's one. That's worth picking. Gasco's gonna have some pickles. And I'll pick this little one too. Why not? Little is good. Cucumbers of any size are worth picking. They're all good. Looks like our dill is coming along. It's looking pretty good. The dill back here in the back is doing really well. It's liking that lack of sun. Dill prefers a little cooler environment. And our lemon balm is lush. Our spinach, or strawberry spinach, is doing really well. And we've got some cilantro and some purple bok choy that are starting to take off too. So thank you, Mr. Martin, for watering our hydroponics tower so that we can keep all these beautiful plants growing. All right, we got some other cool things going on in the garden, and maybe we'll make this something of a Thanksgiving themed garden update. So let's take a look at some other things that you might include in your Thanksgiving dinner, starting with our pole beans. So our pole beans, like our cucumbers, are not really liking when it gets too cold. They can handle 40 degrees, but when it drops down into the 30s, they struggle a little bit. One thing I'm really excited about with our pole beans is they are starting to flower. And once we have flowers, it's not much longer until we start to have beans. So our pole beans are coming along. We'll probably have plenty in time for Christmas, for winter break, for Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or whatever you celebrate. So fun stuff going on here with our pole beans. Lots of flowers, very pretty purple flowers on our pole beans. I think we talked about this before, but this is not something we're going to eat. These are marigolds, and we keep them because they are good at helping us control pests. They repel insects that might want to eat our plants, as well as attract some that might want to eat other insects that are eating our plants. Another really cool thing we've got going on over here in this bed, we've got some germination. If you all remember our last update, we planted lettuce and we planted carrots here in this part of our garden. And the lettuce seems to be popping up really well. Carrots, not so much. I think I only saw one carrot germinate. It might take another week or so for them to germinate. Here we go. We do have some carrots germinating here. And it looks like we got a few germinating over here as well. And hopefully over the next few weeks, we'll start to see even more germination from our carrots. But we definitely have our tennis ball lettuce, as well as our Yeticule lettuce, mostly tennis ball lettuce though. So very cool. Germination. A few more weeks, we'll start to see some heads of lettuce and some carrots popping up. Now, in addition to lettuce and carrots and beans that you might have in your Thanksgiving dinner, we're going to walk over here to our herb garden, and there's some really cool things happening in our herb garden. We've got our basil. We've talked about basil before, and boy, don't we have a lot of it. But we haven't talked a lot about some other herbs here in our garden. This is our sage, and sage goes really well with turkey. So we're going to pick some of this sage, and we're going to have some of it with Mr. Gaskill's turkey next week, because this is really fragrant stuff. Oh yeah. And it tastes really good with chicken and poultry of all kinds, including turkey. And we also have another herb that's really good with poultry, like chicken and turkey. This is thyme, okay? And thyme is a really fun herb. You can pair it with sage, and it goes really well on turkeys. A lot of people like to include thyme in the seasonings for their birds. So we'll take some thyme too with our sage. And for those of you who are fans of 1960s folk music, we have, growing over here on the other side, some parsley from the summer that never did completely die. And it's popping back up again now that it's cooled down, because parsley doesn't really like the heat that much. So we've got parsley, sage, and we got to put some rosemary in, right? So we could have parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. All right. So really cool things going on here in our herb garden. We've also got a little lavender that we're going to include in our soap. And those of you who might recognize these, Farmer Rosalie had some leftover strawberries that she wanted to include in our herb garden. So she popped them in here. So we're going to have some strawberries growing in here too. Strawberries actually are kind of like bananas in that they produce asexually. They reproduce sexually as well with seeds, but they also produce what are called runners, which spread out and then send down roots to make new strawberry plants. So we not only have asexual reproduction going on with our bananas sending up their suckers, but we also have strawberries which can reproduce asexually as well. Another thing growing here next to our thyme that you might include in your Thanksgiving dinner are chives. Chives are very flavorful, very fragrant. You might include them with potatoes. Potatoes go really well with chives. So we might pick some chives as well for our Thanksgiving dinner. They're pretty tasty. And finally, before we leave our herb garden, let's check in on our bean vine. Our Seychelles have produced a nice, beautiful bean here. We'll eat him up. Doesn't look like, though, we've had much more production out of our Seychelles bean vine. We've got plenty of vine growing down here, including a purple vine. But looks like this is our only bean. But, you know, who wants to turn down a bean? And checking in on our fig, which is really kind of growing wild. We probably ought to prune this at some point. But we've got some figs that are ripening. And figs are really good in salads. They're good raw. You might have sung about figgy pudding. So we've got figs as well growing here in our garden that you might include in your Thanksgiving dinner, along with a lush bed of mint. And mint is very nice to go with jellies that you might include in your Thanksgiving dinner. You could also include mint in salads or even include them in a lemonade. So I'm going to pick some of this mint and we'll have some mint with some lemonade and a kind of cocktail for Ms. Rampton and I for our Thanksgiving dinner as well. This mint is going to be here probably until the end of time. Did you catch that? Ton. Mr. Gaskill talking about thyme and thyme with an H and without. But we got some good mint here. We'll include that in our Thanksgiving dinner as well. Now, checking in on our pumpkins. It is just getting too cold for these poor guys. We didn't get them in fast enough, or it got too hot for them and they didn't grow fast enough. Either way, it looks like this is about the end of the road for our Blanco pumpkins. And I don't know, there's maybe enough here for a small pie between our little pumpkins. We never did get any fertilization on our poor pumpkins. They grew prolifically. We had one female flower that we tried to cross-pollinate with the Blanco, but just never took. And at this point, our pumpkins are just too cold. They are not liking this weather. The colder it gets, the worse it is for our poor pumpkins. As far as our corn is host to a lot of ladybugs, and I know that you guys love ladybugs. Here are some immature ladybugs, but they're everywhere, and so it's probably time to start harvesting our corn. One thing about the corn, and we had talked about this before, a long time ago, as one of the three sisters with beans and pumpkins, corn can serve as a support structure for beans, and we do have a few bean vines that have wound their way up the corn stalks in here, and we can see that the corn is serving as a decent support structure for the beans, although I think comparing them to the bean cone definitely outperformed the corn as a support structure for beans. So we can see we've got some pretty good growth coming up here now. We'll see how far they go. Again, more ladybugs, or baby ladybugs, larvae, in our popcorn. I think this popcorn's ready to harvest and start drying. Didn't get fertilized very well, but that's okay. It got pretty hot during the summer and cooked a lot of our pollen from our male flowers before it could be very viable. All right, so this corn is probably as ready as it's ever going to be. So I think we'll just go ahead and harvest some corn, and it'll be popcorn Charlie Brown style for Thanksgiving, because you can definitely pop popcorn for Thanksgiving as well. And if we open up our corn, we can just see how well the popcorn is doing. We got some good popcorn kernels here. All right, we're doing all right with this popcorn. Looks like you got fertilized pretty well. So we can just let this dry a little bit and then pop out some popcorn kernels. And where'd he go? Let's hit out another one. Then we'll have a nice popcorn kernel for some popcorn. Very cool. Charlie Brown Thanksgiving. We'll include this in our Thanksgiving bounty. We can see some of our popcorn. We've got mint and thyme and sage, as well as cucumbers, one bean, and a pumpkin for our Thanksgiving break. So that's it for our Thanksgiving edition of the Knudson Garden Update. We got popcorn, we got cucumbers, we got beans, we've got sage and thyme and mint. We got all kinds of cool things going on, a little pumpkin too. Stay safe, guys, wear a mask, stay home, wash your hands, and we'll see you soon.